I should have known. The way she hesitated at the altar. The flicker in her eyes when she said, "I do." The smile that didn't quite reach her soul. But I was blinded. Blinded by the dress. By the applause. By the fantasy I had built around a woman who never truly belonged to me. Her name was Claire. Blonde, breathtaking, the kind of woman who made you feel lucky just to be in her orbit. We met in Chicago, typical bar, typical Friday night. She walked in like she owned the place. And maybe she did in some way. The room shifted when she entered. My world certainly did. I was an HVAC contractor. Blue-collar, honest work. Early mornings, cold beers after long days. Nothing fancy. She, on the other hand, worked in PR for a luxury hotel chain. Always on her phone. Always one step ahead. I thought our differences made us interesting. Now I know they made us combustible. The wedding was big. Bigger than I wanted. Her parents covered most of it, insisted on a venue with chandeliers and violinists. I just wanted a backyard barbecue with a keg and some classic rock. But I gave in. I always gave in with Claire. We married in October. The leaves were gold, the sky clear, everything perfect. But even then, even in that picture-perfect moment, something felt off. She barely touched me on our wedding night. Said she was tired. Said the day had worn her out. I believed her. Or maybe I just didn't want to believe what my gut was screaming. 2 weeks into the marriage, she started working late. Conferences. Dinners with clients. Late-night calls she'd take on the balcony, whispering like the wind might carry her words somewhere dangerous. I started noticing little things. Her phone always face down. New lingerie that I never saw her wear for me. A second credit card she didn't tell me about. And then, one night, I heard her laugh. That laugh, soft, sultry, not the laugh she gave me. The laugh she gave when she was flirting. When she was hungry for attention. She was on the phone. I pretended to be asleep. "I miss you too," she whispered. "I wish I was with you instead." My heart didn't just sink. It shattered. Quietly. Like a glass slipping into deep water. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. I needed to know more. Needed to be sure. So I waited. I watched. I became a stranger in my own home, documenting my wife like a goddamn private eye. And what I found tore my soul in half. It started with her laptop. Claire had left it open one morning while she was in the shower. I wasn't the type to snoop, or at least, I hadn't been before. But that whisper on the phone, that laugh, it hollowed something out inside me. So I looked. My hands shook as I navigated to her email, half praying I'd find nothing. Half praying I would. There were dozens of messages. Some innocent. Most not. A name kept appearing, Zach. Sometimes Z. Sometimes just an emoji. My stomach churned as I read their exchanges. Flirty jokes. Late-night messages. Reservations at expensive restaurants. Mentions of hotel suites. And worst of all, things like, "You make me feel alive again," and "He doesn't get me the way you do." He. That was me. I was he in my own wife's love story. I clicked deeper, opening photos she had saved, selfies in hotel mirrors, texts with red hearts, calendar events labeled spa day that were actually romantic weekends with him in Miami, in Denver, in Vegas. She wasn't just cheating. She was living another life. A parallel existence, fully formed and funded by lies. The worst part? They started before the wedding. Claire had been with him months before we said our vows. While I was picking out a tux, she was picking out lingerie for another man. While I was writing my vows, she was writing to him about how hard it was to juggle 2 lives. And yet she married me. I felt sick. Betrayal didn't even begin to cover it. This wasn't just about sex. This was about contempt. About deception so deep, so cold, it rewired how I saw her and myself. But I didn't blow up. Not right away. I needed time. I needed proof. So I copied everything. Emails. Screenshots. Photos. I backed it all up, created a private folder on my own drive and labeled it something innocuous, Invoices Q3. For the next week, I acted normal. I kissed her in the morning. Asked about her day. Listened as she told me about meetings and deadlines, all while knowing she was lying with every word. I studied her like a stranger. Noticed how she avoided eye contact. How she flinched when I touched her. How her smiles now seemed mechanical, rehearsed like a customer service script. And then came Friday. She told me she was heading to New York for a last-minute conference. I nodded, pretended not to care, kissed her goodbye at the door. She didn't know I had placed a tracking app on her phone the night before. She didn't go to New York. She went to a boutique hotel downtown, a sleek, modern place with rooftop views and champagne service. She checked in under her maiden name. I watched it all in real time. That night, I stood across the street from that hotel in my truck, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I watched the lights in the suite flicker on. I watched her silhouette behind the curtains. I watched as another figure appeared, tall, broad, confident. Zach. They laughed. They kissed. They poured wine. And I died a little. I didn't confront them. Not then. I drove home, parked in the dark, and sat in silence. Hours passed. I thought about everything: our wedding, our first date, her fake tears when she said I was the one. I wanted to scream. To smash something. To make her feel what I felt. But revenge, I realized, needed to be surgical. Clean. Precise. So I planned. The next morning, Claire came home as if nothing had happened. She smelled faintly of expensive cologne that didn't belong to me. Her hair was still curled, her makeup too perfect for a business trip. She smiled, that plastic, soulless smile, and kissed my cheek like we were just two people going through motions. I played along. I asked how the conference went. She said it was productive. She said she was exhausted. She even slipped in a detail about keynote speakers as if rehearsed. She had no idea I had been sitting in my truck the night before, watching her from across the street, memorizing every lie she told with her body. That week, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I lay next to her at night while she dreamed or maybe texted him under the covers, and I imagined every version of confrontation. Should I scream? Should I throw her things out the window? Should I call Zach and threaten him? But the truth was, none of that would give me peace. I didn't want to just catch her. I wanted her to feel what I felt. The confusion. The humiliation. The raw, relentless ache in my chest. So I started leaving clues. Subtle things. I changed the lock screen on my phone to a photo from our wedding, the one where she looked just past me like she was searching for someone else. I left it face up on the table. She noticed. Her eyes lingered. But she said nothing. Then I started talking about fidelity. About trust. Casually. Over dinner. While we watched TV. I'd say things like, I don't get how someone could cheat on their spouse. It's like burning your own house down. She'd nod, sometimes too quickly, sometimes with that distant look that meant she wasn't really listening. She was nervous, though. I could tell. Her hands fidgeted more. She started locking her phone. Started double-checking her bags before leaving the house. And still she lied. Still she smiled. The final straw came a week later. I came home early from work, said the job site got shut down due to a permit issue. She wasn't expecting me. I found her in the living room wearing lingerie I had never seen before: red lace, delicate straps, high heels. She froze when she saw me. There was panic in her eyes for a split second before she recovered. Oh, I was getting ready for you, she said, voice a little too bright. For me? I asked. Middle of a Wednesday? She laughed nervously. You've been stressed. I thought I'd surprise you. I played along. I went through the motions. I made love to her while my mind screamed. Every touch felt like betrayal. Every moan like mockery. She kissed me like she was erasing someone else's name from her lips. That night, I cried in the garage. I didn't make a sound. I just sat on the cold concrete, my back against the toolbox, and let it all fall out of me. Everything I had built with her, every plan, every promise, felt like a lie carved into my skin. The next day, I made an appointment with a divorce lawyer. But I didn't file. Not yet. I had one more move to make. I needed her to see the wreckage. To taste it. To choke on it. I planned the reveal like an execution. Every detail mattered. Timing, delivery, atmosphere. I wasn't going to yell or beg or fall to pieces. No, I wanted precision. Control. I wanted to be the one who left her speechless, the way she had left me paralyzed in silence night after night, lying beside a woman I didn't know anymore. I waited until our anniversary. 1 year to the day since I slipped a ring on her finger and vowed to love her forever. 1 year since I kissed a lie and called it my wife. I booked a reservation at the restaurant where we'd had our first date. She loved the place, the wine list, the ambience, the way the lighting made her feel like she was in a movie. I called ahead, requested a private booth. Then I picked her up, flowers in hand, dressed in the suit I wore to our wedding. She beamed when she saw me, acting like we were some fairy tale couple reliving the magic. The performance was exhausting. But I smiled back. I kissed her like I believed it. At dinner, I asked her questions about us, about our first year of marriage, about her favorite memories. She lied with ease. Told me I was the best thing that ever happened to her. Told me she was grateful for how I supported her career, how I trusted her so fully. I listened carefully. Let her build her tower of deceit higher and higher. I let her decorate it with nostalgia and fake affection. And then, when dessert came, I slid a small black envelope across the table. Her smile faltered. What's this? Open it, I said quietly, calmly. Inside were 5 photographs. Just 5. Carefully chosen. Her in the hotel suite with Zach. Her kissing him in the elevator. Her texts printed out, highlighted, neatly arranged like evidence in a courtroom. Her face went pale. She blinked, stunned, like she'd forgotten how to move her mouth. Then she looked up at me, and for the first time in months, I saw real emotion in her eyes. Not guilt, not shame. Fear. I leaned in, voice steady. I know everything. I've known for weeks. This night, this dinner, it's not a celebration. It's a funeral. For the version of me that ever loved you. She tried to speak. No, I interrupted, still calm. Don't insult me by pretending. I've seen the photos. I've read your little love notes. You were cheating on me before we were even married. You married me for safety, for status. You used me. Tears started to pool in her eyes. Not the sobbing kind, the silent, trembling kind that leaked from shock, not remorse. She reached across the table, but I pulled my hand away. You don't get to touch me, I said. Not anymore. Around us, the restaurant buzzed with quiet conversation and the clinking of silverware. No one noticed our private collapse. No one knew a marriage was dying in the corner booth. That's how betrayal is, invisible until it screams. I stood up, took one last look at the woman I once thought I'd grow old with, and whispered, you can keep the flowers. They'll be dead by morning. Just like us. Then I walked out. And for the first time in months, I could breathe. The days that followed were both quiet and brutal. Like a battlefield after the last shot has been fired, smoke still rising, bodies still warm, but the war technically over. Claire tried to contact me. At first, it was subtle. A voicemail here, a missed call there. She texted things like, can we talk, and please, just one conversation. I didn't answer. I didn't need more lies. I didn't need another round of her wide-eyed innocence or her carefully choreographed regret. I needed space. I needed silence. I needed to reclaim something, anything, that still belonged to me. I moved into a friend's guest house for a while. Joe, a buddy from high school, the kind of guy who didn't ask a lot of questions, just handed me a beer and said, stay as long as you need. I told him pieces, just the basic truth, and he didn't press. That silence was a gift. When your life falls apart, everyone wants to analyze it, fix it, offer advice like band-aids on bullet wounds. Joe just let me sit in it. Let me feel the weight of it without trying to lighten it. I remember one night, I was out on the back porch looking at the stars with a blanket around my shoulders. It was cold, not freezing, just enough to sting a little. That sharpness felt good. Honest. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself feel something deeper than rage. I felt grief. Not for Claire, not for the liar I'd married, but for the man I used to be. The man who believed in her. The man who built a life around a foundation of fraud. He was gone. Killed not by infidelity, but by trust misplaced. And then came the letter. Not a text. Not an email. An actual handwritten letter delivered to Joe's house in a cream-colored envelope with my name written in her delicate script. My hands trembled as I opened it. Part of me didn't want to read it, feared the power her words still held over me. But I read it anyway. Because closure, I'd learned, doesn't come from silence. It comes from understanding the full extent of what you lost. She wrote 5 pages. 5 pages of apologies, justifications, half-truths disguised as revelations. She said she'd never stop loving me, not even while she was with him. She said she was confused, that Zach meant nothing, that he was just a distraction from the pressure of real life. She claimed the affair was her way of coping, of feeling seen. And somewhere in the middle of that emotional vomit, she dared to write, maybe we can start again. Maybe this time we'll get it right. I laughed. Not a joyful laugh. Not even a bitter one. Just a hollow, tired sound. The sound of a man who realized he wasn't even angry anymore. Just done. I didn't respond. I took the letter, folded it carefully, and burned it in Joe's fire pit that night. I watched the paper curl and blacken. The ink turned to ash, and with it, I let go of the last piece of her voice inside my head. I wasn't healed. Not yet. But I was beginning. Healing didn't come in waves. Came in pieces, uneven, unpredictable, sometimes unrecognizable. One morning I'd wake up feeling almost whole. Like I could laugh again without hearing echoes of her voice in my mind. Then a smell, a song, or a stranger with blonde hair would drag me right back into the pit. People talk about heartbreak like it's poetic, something that inspires great music or art. But the truth is, it's messy. It's the smell of your ex-wife's shampoo in a grocery store aisle. It's deleting songs from your playlist because they now feel like inside jokes with a ghost. It's waking up at 2 a.m. because you had a dream where she apologized, and meant it this time. I threw myself into work. HVAC wasn't glamorous, but it was grounding. I liked the feel of tools in my hands, the rhythm of routine. Climbing ladders, fixing broken systems, getting dirty. There was no room for emotional wreckage on a rooftop in 90-degree heat. My coworkers noticed the shift. I wasn't the funny guy anymore. I didn't stay for beers after a job. I kept my head down and my answers short. They didn't push. Men like us, we suffer in silence. 3 months passed. Then one afternoon, while working on a unit at a law office downtown, I saw her, Claire, walking out of a cafe across the street, phone in hand, laughing. She looked exactly the same, elegant, composed, that effortless beauty that used to disarm me. But now all I felt was detachment. Like I was looking at a character from a story I'd already closed. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and chose not to. Either way, I didn't move. I just watched her walk away, heels clicking on pavement, voice floating above traffic. And in that moment, I realized something that shook me more than rage or grief ever did. I didn't want her back. Not even a little. It wasn't that I'd stopped loving her. Maybe a small part of me always would. But the illusion had finally shattered. The spell had broken. She wasn't my Claire anymore. Maybe she never was. She was an idea I fell in love with, a fantasy I wrapped in skin and gave a name. And once the truth burned through that illusion, all that remained was a stranger who shared my last name on paper. Nothing more. That night, I finally filed for divorce. I didn't text her, didn't warn her. I just signed the documents, paid the fee, and let the system do the rest. There was something cathartic about the paperwork, the cold, bureaucratic undoing of something once sacred. I dropped the envelope into the courthouse slot, heard it land with a soft thud, and stood there for a while. Not sad, not proud, just free. The divorce went through with little resistance. Claire didn't contest it. She didn't show up in court. She signed where she had to, submitted her documents, and vanished into the system like a file misfiled and forgotten. I didn't hear her voice again. Not once. No phone call. No tearful last plea. She let me go as effortlessly as she once let her lingerie fall to the floor for another man. That somehow hurt more than all the lies, because it proved that I had been right, not just about her betrayal, but about my own insignificance in her world. I wasn't a heartbreak. I was just a chapter she had skimmed through. After the paperwork was finalized, I took a week off work. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I packed my truck with nothing but essentials, left my phone turned off in the glove box, and drove north. I didn't have a destination. I just knew I needed distance, not just from Claire, but from everything that reminded me of the man I had been with her. I ended up in a cabin near Lake Geneva, a place I'd visited as a teenager, back when love still felt like something pure. Back when I thought I'd never be the kind of man someone could betray. The days were quiet, filled with long walks through the woods and coffee sipped in silence. I journaled for the first time in years. Not because I fancied myself a writer, but because I needed to extract the poison. I wrote down everything, not just what she had done, but what I had allowed. How I had ignored the signs. How I had chosen comfort over truth. I didn't do it to blame myself. I did it to reclaim agency. To remind myself that I wasn't a victim. I was a man who had trusted wrong. And that mistake didn't make me weak. It made me human. One night, I sat on the porch, wrapped in an old flannel, watching the moonlight flicker across the lake. I thought about the future, about love, trust, the terrifying idea of starting over. And I realized something strange, something almost liberating. I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of being alone. Not of being hurt again. The worst had already happened. I had been gutted, humiliated, lied to by the one person I had let in the deepest. And I had survived. Scarred, yes, but still standing. Still breathing. And maybe, just maybe, still capable of something new. That night, I wrote a sentence in my journal I'll never forget. She broke my heart, but she didn't break me. It was the first time I truly believed it. Coming back home after that week in the cabin felt different. The city hadn't changed, but I had. The streets were the same, the traffic still relentless, my apartment still cold in the mornings, but something inside me had settled. The anger had cooled into clarity. The pain had stopped screaming and begun to whisper. I still had bad days, of course. Healing isn't linear. But I wasn't drowning anymore. I was wading through the mess, slowly but surely reaching the shore. I changed the apartment. Got rid of everything that reminded me of Claire. The throw pillows she picked out. The wine glasses she never washed. That framed photo of us on the pier, I smashed it without hesitation, swept the glass up like old dust. I bought a new bed. New sheets. Painted the walls. I needed the space to feel mine again, like I was reclaiming my own name after it had been dragged through the mud of betrayal. Work got easier too. I started talking more, laughing again, even if it was just at stupid jokes with the guys on site. My boss noticed. He pulled me aside one afternoon and said, "You're looking more like yourself again." I nodded, didn't say much. But inside, I felt it. I was rebuilding. Not the life I had before, that one was gone. But a better one. One where my eyes were open. Where my trust would be earned, not blindly given. Where I didn't shrink myself to make someone else feel bigger. And then, as life always does, the unexpected happened. I met someone. Not in a bar. Not through friends. She was a client. Her AC unit had blown during a heat wave and I came to fix it. Her name was Rachel. Early 30s, dark curls, sharp wit, the kind of woman who didn't apologize for taking up space. She made me laugh within the first 5 minutes. Not forced laughter, real, chest-deep laughter I hadn't felt in what felt like years. She offered me iced tea while I worked and told me about her rescue dogs. She didn't flirt. She didn't pretend. She was just real. I didn't ask for her number that day. I wasn't ready. But I thought about her after I left. Not the way I used to think about Claire, not with obsession or insecurity. Just curiosity. A quiet wondering of what it might feel like to talk to someone without the shadow of betrayal hovering overhead. A week later, I ran into her at a hardware store. She smiled like she'd been expecting it. Fate? Coincidence? I didn't care. We had coffee. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I felt something warm stir in my chest that wasn't anger or regret. It was hope. Rachel didn't save me, she wasn't some manic pixie dream girl arriving to sweep the broken man off his feet. No, what she offered was something far more rare and valuable, presence. She listened when I spoke, not with pity, but with patience. She never pried, never pushed, never tried to fill the silence with false comfort. Our conversations were like deep rivers, slow, steady, full of hidden current. We talked about everything: music, politics, family, the things we lost and the things we were still searching for. She wasn't afraid of the cracks in people. In fact, she respected them. Said that the broken places are where the light gets in. I didn't believe her at first. But I wanted to. I didn't rush it. I couldn't. After being torn apart by someone who wore love like a mask, I needed time to recognize honesty again. But Rachel never made me feel like I was on a timeline. She let me arrive as I was cautious, bruised, unfinished. And slowly, I found myself opening doors I had nailed shut. Telling stories I hadn't spoken aloud in years. Letting her touch me not just with her hands, but with her attention. She asked nothing from me but truth. And for the first time in a long time, I had some to give. One night, we sat on her balcony watching a storm roll in. The sky cracked open with lightning, and the air was thick with that electric charge that always comes before rain. She turned to me and asked, softly, "Do you still think about her?" I didn't lie. Sometimes. Not like I miss her. Just, I remember who I was with her. And who I had to become to survive her. Rachel nodded. She doesn't own your past. But she doesn't have to define your future either. That sentence hit harder than she knew. Because for so long I had been living in reaction to Claire. Reacting to her betrayal. Her absence. Her silence. But Rachel was right. I didn't know Claire another ounce of my energy. Not even in memory. She had taken enough. And I had finally started to understand that letting go wasn't the same as forgetting, it was just refusing to carry someone else's weight any further. A month later, I took down the last photo of Claire that had survived my purge. I didn't burn it this time. I didn't smash it. I just placed it in a box, sealed it, and shoved it into the darkest corner of my closet. A chapter closed not with fire, but with quiet acceptance. Rachel never tried to replace her. She simply stood beside me while I built something new. Not perfect. Not easy. But honest. And that was enough. It's been over a year now. A year since I stood in that courthouse, papers in hand, watching the ink dry on what was once a promise. A year since the lie unraveled and I was forced to look at the ruins of everything I believed in. Sometimes when I tell people what happened, they look at me with a mix of sympathy and disbelief, like betrayal is still something rare, something abstract. But it's not. It's real. It's sharp. It has a weight and a temperature. And for a while, it becomes your whole world. But it doesn't have to stay that way. I look in the mirror now and see someone different. Not just older, though pain does age you, but wiser. Clearer. There's a steadiness in my eyes that wasn't there before. I no longer crave the illusion of love that demands I shrink myself to fit someone else's emptiness. I want real. Raw. Imperfect. I want partnership, not performance. And in Rachel, I found a woman who walks beside me, not in front of me, not behind me. There are still scars. Some days I still flinch when the phone buzzes late at night or when someone says she seemed so perfect. But those flinches are just memories echoing through healed flesh. They don't control me anymore. Claire never reached out again. No calls. No emails. No dramatic closure scene. Maybe she couldn't face what she'd done. Maybe she found someone else to lie to. Or maybe, and this is the truth I prefer, maybe she knows that nothing she says would matter. Because forgiveness isn't something I gave her. It's something I gave myself. I forgave myself for trusting her. For loving her. For staying too long. And that forgiveness was the key. Because in the end, betrayal is not just about what someone does to you. It's about how you rebuild yourself after. Do you let it define your future? Or do you let it shape your strength? I chose the latter. This isn't a story about revenge. It's not even really about her. It's about what happens when your life explodes and you're left holding the pieces, unsure of what still fits. It's about the slow, brutal, necessary work of putting yourself back together. Stronger. Smarter. Still kind, but no longer naive. She broke my heart. But I rebuilt something better in its place. And that I've learned is the real victory.